I've already taken a kind of a quick run through Chris's mock. I've identified the pick that I hate the most.
Oh, there are going to be plenty. Even,
I don't want to.
Even my hometown Bengals are going to absolutely hate. Well, that's
I'm not going to click
usual.
on a pick until we get there. So let's start.
Right.
Number 1 overall, it's the Carolina Panthers. Who are you going with at number 1, Chris?
Yeah, I'm too chicken to go against what you know is going to happen here, right? So you got to go with Bryce Young, and it's probably the right thing to do. He's ready to play. He's the one guy that, in my mind, you can put him out there on opening day, and he's not going to embarrass himself. He's not going to embarrass you. The one that I really worry about with him more than anything, he gets the game. I mean, God, you can see the way that he reads defenses, and he just gets it. He knows what he's doing out there. His superpower, obviously, is quick feet, quick mind, escapability, all of that kind of stuff. But he has relatively small hands. We haven't seen him play a game in January. We haven't seen him play a game in December in horrible weather. And a lot of times those are different kind of football games, and that's when championships are won. And that's if you're taking him first overall. That's definitely what it is that you're looking for. But I'm hopeful that he ends up being for Frank what they think he's going to be. All those tests, they all just absolutely love him. But he doesn't throw the ball very far. He just,
you have concerns about his arm?
I do, and so do some of the people in this league. Yeah. So here's the biggest concern. So I just, one coach told me that they asked him how far he could throw it, and he said 55 yards, like the lowest number they've ever heard. Either this kid is brutally honest,
what?
Or every one of the other ones says
like
75, 80. I throw it 140 yards, whatever
Josh
it is.
Allen, 2
Will
football
Levis
fields.
threw 50 from his knees.
Yeah, so you get all that stuff. But the one thing that it really does come into play, and I'll use Russell Wilson as an example. Russell Wilson calls it the moon ball, where he throws it a mile up in the air, and as
Chad
a
Pennington
receiver,
as well.
Yeah, it drops in like this instead of like this, so the DB can't knock it away. When you watch Bryce throw it long, that doesn't happen. It's much more of a shot. I think where he's really good is in that 20 to 40 yard range. That is his sort of deep game where he's, getting it out and reading it well. He has all the intangibles, love him. Everybody I talk to absolutely loves him, thinks he's so smart. So, that's my concern. Can he get it down the field enough like an NFL player?
How concerned are you with his size, right? Because, you're a former NFL player. You're what? It's like 6'5"? You're NFL sized, right? You, 6'5", Boomer Esiason is huge. All these NFL players are huge, and Bryce Young is essentially my size. And I'm not NFL size. And he's potentially the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, I always thought the weakness of Russell Wilson's game was over the middle, and it had to be at least in part because he couldn't see him, and not like deep down the middle. I mean, like those 5-10 yard throws where there would clearly be times on tape that you saw it was wide open. And so I don't know. And the other thing is NFL players are a lot better at taking a step into their pass rush and knowing if they're stymied or not. And if they are, they get their hands up.
Yeah.
I don't ever see that in college. I never see anybody do that where they just know, okay, I'm stuck. I'm going to get my hands up. And in the NFL, they do it anyway. They're going to really do it to him. And if it bugged Tom Brady, we went to the Super Bowl. We were in Indy getting ready for that one against the Giants, and it was the year that Brady got a bunch of passes knocked down in the playoffs prior to that. So they had like these huge paddles that they stuck up in the middle of the pass rush that he had to throw around. It made him insane. It literally made him crazy because they kept batting his balls and doing all that. I think that's what it's going to be like for Bryce here early on.
My theory on the batted passes, though, is it's far more scheme related and where you want to throw the ball than height related. And I think it's the height and vision issue that I think he's got the challenge, because everybody's like, oh, he stands tall in the pocket, he's got a high release. But batted passes come when you're trying to throw the ball right over the ball, right? Like when you're trying to throw the ball right over the center. So I feel like you could scheme around that a little bit, but you also don't want to take away any part of the field just because of height. But so it sounds like you're getting the same vibes we are. If he's 6'2", we're not even questioning this at all, right?
We're talking about him as one of the top quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence kind of guy that's come out in a while. I mean, but it goes back to what I was saying, the top 10 guys. Like, who are you going, this is surefire, Pro Bowler, Hall of Famer?
None of
them.
go,
right? None of them. That's the problem. It is.
All right, so you're going with the expectation here. Pick 1, Carolina Panthers taking Bryce Young. Puts the Houston Texans on the clock at pick 2. There's a lot of smoke now around pick 2. Kentucky quarterback Will Levis is now the betting favorite, for whatever that's worth, betting favorite to go number 2 overall. We seem to think that, hey, that might be the case, but that might be because there's also smoke around the Texans trading out.
Right. Critically, it doesn't mean it's going to Houston.
I like your note that you put here. So where are you going here at number 2 for the Houston Texans?
Where I want to go is Lamar Jackson. That's what I really want to happen.
I have an idea on how they do this.
Tell me.
So you have to give up 2 first-round picks, right, back to back to match.
So you only have to do it if you sign him, if you go the offer sheet route. You don't have to give up 2 if you independently trade for him, I believe.
I would go, if you could go the offer sheet route by doing this. The Texans at pick number 2 pick Will Anderson, and then their next pick is 12. Then you immediately send the offer sheet with pick 12 instead of 2. So you pick Will Anderson, you do the offer sheet at 12, and then next year's first rounder.
But the Ravens have a week to match that offer sheet.
Yeah,
that's pretty sure the draft clock expires.
I'll give you. That's fine. Well, the Ravens should.
The Vikings should get away with
it. Ravens should take it. So, would you trade for Lamar Jackson right off the bat? What would you do if you're Houston?
I don't know. I'm just saying that if I were Houston, I would not be in on this quarterback class. I kind of buy into what they're saying, that I want to let's build the rest of our team and then we'll go get our quarterback later. The only problem is I don't know that the rest of the guys that you're choosing from are worth that kind of consideration in this top 10 situation. So if I could parlay my pick, I put C.J. Stroud just because I try to do it just as is and who I think will be taken. I don't believe the Will Levis stuff going to 2. I personally, what I think happened, Houston desperately wants to get out of there. They started hearing all this Will Levis stuff from the Colts and from other people, and there's like, oh yeah, we really like Will Levis. We love him. We might draft him, hoping that somebody will think they have to go from 4 to 2 to get him. Yeah. The problem with that is I don't think the Colts are serious about Will Levis at 4.
Right.
So it's like, but it's just a big circular, stupid game that's going on right now that's coming out, and everybody knows that it's a con. Everybody nobody's paying attention. And from my standpoint, the clear number 2 was C.J. Stroud if I were taking a quarterback.
Do you think that the Lamar thing actually has a chance of happening? Because that feels to me like every step of the process, Baltimore has been winning the negotiation. Like, they're miles apart. Lamar wants a fully guaranteed deal. The Ravens are like, not a chance. And they're winning all the way along, to the point where, fine. Have your lower non-exclusive franchise tag. Go find the offer you want somewhere else, and then we'll talk. And nothing's happened. So it kind of feels like they've just been winning the whole way, and like Lamar doesn't have an out unless they can manufacture some kind of trade somewhere, which hasn't happened yet.
Well, he always has an out. He can show up and not play.
Sure.
Right? That's the killer. That's the one. And then you get into a little bit of the Aaron Rodgers situation last year, where by having issues, he wasn't in there practicing with the young guys.
Right.
And so I think if Lamar is not there and then he's missing training camp, and remember, you've got no Greg Roman now either. You've got a change of offense. Greg Roman, you can say what you want, but he did it in San Francisco with Colin Kaepernick.
Yep.
He did it with Lamar in Baltimore, and then now they let him go. So now I'm kind of waiting to see, all right, well, what are they going to do with Lamar Jackson? And are they going to make these kinds of changes? But my guess is, and Lamar is such a nice guy. I mean, he really is. He's a sweetheart of a guy. And you go, at the end of the day, is he going to sit in that locker room and not go out and help his teammates win? I just don't see it. I think he'll end up coming back and playing on the tag. There
are people that argue he did that at the end of last year, right? That he could have come back and didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a pretty tough guy, so I don't know. But anyway, so that's what I've got. I've got C.J. Stroud going second, and only because I just can't find a defensive player that makes me go, oh, I'm not going to take a chance on what could be a star quarterback. That's where I keep coming back. I don't love the quarterback class, but if you don't love anybody behind them because of the positional value, right, of the quarterback, wouldn't you take them even if they end up not working? Because the 25% chance that they become a star, you almost have to take it when you're drafting this high.
You've been talking to us for years, and that's kind of like the language that we speak here, which is there's a 25% chance that he's going to be a really good quarterback, right? Do you think that's in NFL draft rooms yet? Maybe some teams. Do you think it's across the board? Because, again, I'm joking around my horizontal board here. Like, this is what they work off of a lot of times, right? It's like, I want the guys at the top level. Those are my blues. Those are my elites. And there's probably not a quarterback with the elites. And do teams still just rank all the players, put them into tiers, and say, I don't want to go down a tier? Because there's a good chance C.J. Stroud is definitely a tier below Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, whichever other blue chips you might put there. Is that what the Texans are battling with right now? They have a blue chip defensive player. You might not love him, but they're still above C.J. Stroud on their board, theoretically.
Sure. Yeah.
Are they still debating that, and is that why we're hearing about them trading out, even though Davis Mills is currently their starting quarterback?
Well, the other part of it you have to remember is the surest way to get fired is to draft the wrong quarterback. Like if you go in there and this is and you go, okay, well, it doesn't matter. He's a first-year coach. We're fine. But all of a sudden you draft a guy and it takes you 2 years to figure out if he really is the guy. Now you're going into your third year of the draft. Houston Texans been getting rid of people really quickly around there. And if you're in your third year and now you got to draft another one and now it's going to be yours 4 or 5 before you know about him, you know, it's just and if you don't really believe, then why are you going to go through the cycle?
Yeah, that's the hardest part, I think, is like, so the logic would be if you're Houston, okay, you don't love any of these quarterbacks, but everybody is bad at this, so the 25% chance that you're wrong is worth taking one anyway, right? If you don't love Levis, you don't love Stroud, you don't love Richardson, but there's a 25% chance, say, arbitrary number, that one of those guys is going to end up as a superstar, and we all goofed on the evaluation. You should take him because, if 1 and 4 is, you don't have anybody right now, and if you hit on that, it's worth doing. But the sort of process from an internal point of view, like literally dictates that ignore what you think. Like assume you're wrong here because the chance, like if you are, the chance is actually a good thing. That I think is a really difficult sell for an NFL team to be like, okay, the smart move here is to assume that you're wrong.
Oh my gosh. I mean, nobody does that. Of course, I mean, there's 32 GMs in the world and they all got their job because they went to a billionaire and said, I got all the answers, right? So of course they're not going to go to their billionaire owner and be like, look, I don't have all the answers, but we're going to run the, we're going to draft multiple. Like the Texans can draft a QB at 2 and 12 if somebody falls because we're going to, that's not going to happen, right?
But know what, when I was talking to some coaches and they were asking me about the quarterback thing, I said, you know what I would do? I would like to be where the Raiders are right now. I don't care which one of them comes to me. I think all 4 of them have a 25% chance of becoming something. And whether they do or not, I don't know. But But I would rather take the 3rd or the 4th one or the 5th one. I'm not completely out on Hooker either. And so I would rather have one of those other guys. I would not have done what Carolina did unless they just absolutely love Bryce, and there's a lot to love there, but there's a lot to be concerned about too. I would have waited for one of those other guys to fall to me and then just reduce the risk a little bit.
All right, we're half hour into the show. We're 2 picks in. I
know how it happens to you guys now,
right?
Man.
Right?
Yeah,
you have adapted to the PFF NFL
fault.
podcast. It's just you get sucked into the conversation. Number 3, the Arizona Cardinals are up on the clock, and we've already gotten to like what if scenarios here, Chris. What's happening here at number 3 for Arizona?
I mean, I'm sitting there going, all right, if I'm not taking a quarterback, which they're not, and I can't trade it, which they obviously will. That's what's so stupid about doing this. I think 2 and 3 are going to be traded. I just do.
Famously, by the way, the 2016 NFL draft, that was where Chris Stradamus, is that what we were calling it at the time? something like that. You predicted the Rams trading up from
I
like
know.
14.
That was my big moment. That's the only thing that nothing else I've done has warranted any reason why I should be sitting here with you guys.
That was your first ever PFF mock draft. You're like, yeah, the Rams are going to shoot up from 14 to 1 to go get a quarterback. It's going to be Goff, and you nailed it.
Everybody thought that I had some information. That's how stupid I was. I was like, no, I didn't have anything.
All you need is one to be able to keep referring back to all the time.
Arizona at 3.
The best player in the draft is Jalen Carter. So I just did that. I think that eventually you need a superstar somewhere. And I am a bigger believer than most that the 3 technique is at least as important as the edge, if not more so. Because I think if you have a great 3 technique, you have the ability to push that pocket. And if that quarterback can't step up, you can get moderate talent on the edge to get around and have a chance to get to the quarterback. The guys that don't have that internal push and those guys can step up, you can be the greatest edge rusher in the world. And now I know that my quarterback's going to be able to step up every single time. I'm taking a hard inside set as a tackle. I'm forcing around the outside, and I'm just rushing to cut him off because I know my quarterback's going to be up and out of there. When you have Aaron Donald inside, that is not a factor. I mean, that's the reason we've seen guys put up career numbers on the edge when they're playing with Aaron.
You can convince me. I mean, there hasn't been a good defensive tackle class in about 5 years, or 4 years, at least since the 2019 class. I think Jalen Carter, I see some of your notes here, Chris Jones comparisons and all that stuff. I think all of those comparisons are fair. If you just run the hard numbers on his production and everything, it's right up there with Chris Jones and Quinnen Williams from a grading standpoint, from a projection standpoint. Every single defensive tackle, Jeffrey Simmons, all the guys who have become elite defensive tackles, Jalen Carter ticks every box. I think we'll get to Will Anderson when he comes up. I think those 2 guys are the safest projections on the field. But, of course, the Carter question is everything else that happened.
Is he a bad guy? That's what I don't know. When you don't get to do the interviews, it's impossible. I'm not
even going to try to guess.
I don't know
that stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what teams are trying to find out now, right?
I'll say this. I mean, I can't give away. I mean, we were in NFL when we were at the Combine. I was in a meeting with an NFL team. Let's just say a team that could pick Jalen Carter when the news broke about everything that was happening in Georgia. And I remember looking across the table, being like, "Hey, did you see this Jalen Carter news?" And it was no, we hadn't seen that yet. So I don't know how much of an impact that's had since the Combine. And then a bad workout, and but is that the bad workout because he's got everything else going on and all that stuff? All I know is when he's on the field, he wrecks games, and he didn't do it for many snaps, but he is outstanding at being good at football.
And I don't think the many snaps thing is his fault either. Like that rotation at Georgia is insane. Like they have so much talent. Nobody plays more than 350 snaps on the defensive line in a season.
But we used it against Jordan Davis because we assumed it's because he's 340 and maybe it's an endurance thing. But should we use it against Jalen Carter?
Well, and also there was evidence, like with Jordan Davis, within his 350 snaps, you could see plays where he looked tired. It's like, he's
and the workout.
He's playing 350, and he's still kind of flagging towards the end of some of these runs. Whereas Jalen Carter is kind of wrecking shop every time he's on the field. Like there was a play against Ohio State where he had a bit of a running start because like they were late getting to the play, the entire Georgia defense. But he swatted DeJuan Jones to the side, like all 380 pounds of DeJuan Jones, just like boom, Reggie White like club, and DeJuan Jones moved like that. That's not easy to do for a guy like that's insane strength, even for a guy that's 6'3", 315 pounds.
And he had some triple wiggle moves, and triple wiggle is like don't, and then you go right. Who as a receiver, I didn't have that coming off the ball. I'm like, oh, what the heck is this thing?
There were plays like you said, Fletcher Cox like power, Chris Jones like bend for a 300-pounder. I mean,
and the ability to reset off of that, like he can contort down and get hit, and then get back up and rush without, losing speed or losing. He's the superstar physically of this draft. And in my mind, it's not even close.
I think, the 2 best players on the field in this draft, I think, are Jalen Carter and Bijan Robinson. And, Bijan obviously has the running back thing, but if you're happy with Carter's off-field stuff, like if you decide he's a good kid and this was just immaturity or whatever it was, you're right. He's the best player in the draft.
So not many people have this, right? When people are mock drafting,
no,
right now,
I know.
Not many people have Jalen Carter at 3. I buy every explanation you gave. I mean, listen, if the off-field checks out for Arizona, I think there's a strong case you take Jalen Carter over Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, over all of them, if it all checks out, if you're comfortable.
I think all those other guys are going to be good players.
Yeah.
He has a chance to be great. And that's the exact same reason that I made my next pick, too.
So the next pick, look at that. You're professional, Chris. Very professional. Yeah. Indianapolis Colts at number 4. Where are you going, Chris?
I'm going Richardson. And the funny – so I went to Florida, right? So I watched a bunch of these games. And most of my friends that cheer for the Gators were talking about there were times in the year they thought he was going to get benched. You know, I mean, that's where we are in this whole thing. But there are times that you see flashes of stuff we haven't seen before.
Right.
I mean, he can throw it a mile. He can run past defensive backs and cornerbacks in the SEC. He can run over linebackers. He likes to play from the pocket. You know, he really does. He likes to stand in there. He's not the slightest bit scared or anything else in there. He was playing against SEC defenses, you know, not other lesser conferences. And he literally has done things that we have not seen. But he also throws balls that no receiver has a chance to catch either. So
even you at 6'5".
Yeah. But there really is, you know, like a Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson. He could run for a touchdown every single year. And the thing I'm always intrigued with Lamar is the number of man coverages that he sees. Mm-hmm. You have to put an 8th guy down in that box, or you're not going to be able to win. So now any receiver in the NFL should be able to win one-on-ones on the outside. As long as he is not having to do a lot of quick reads and quick release kind of stuff, that's not his game. He can throw it down the field. He's a laser arm, good spiral on the ball, huge hand. He's going to be able to control it in January. He's going to be able to control it in December. But I honestly think it's a 2-year commitment to get him on the field. Did you just go, I'm signing you? And I would tell him, I would go, Anthony, look, here's the deal. I'm with the Colts, and I want to draft you, but you don't know how to throw the ball. And we're going to take you to a quarterback guru, and we're going to teach you how to throw the ball, and we're not going to let you do it on the football field in the NFL until you've got this down. There are guys that can teach you. Patrick Mahomes went through a big transition.
There are reports, right?
Josh Allen went through a big transition.
Yeah.
You know, it can be done.
He's got one of those private QB coaches, a guy called Will Hewlett, who's highly regarded as one of these QB gurus. So he's been working with one of those guys already for a while. Do you think that there's a pathway though for? I agree with you. Like, he's got a way to go to be ready, but because he came from an offense that wasn't like the Tennessee offense. Like, he was running NFL concepts. He had to read full field progressions. There was a lot of real quarterback things he was doing at Florida, and wants to play within the pocket. Do you think that there is a pathway, though, for an NFL team to basically run like the Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts playbook of development, where it's not going to be great year one, right? But we're going to tap into the running ability. We're going to let him learn with those live reps of real NFL games, and we're not going to see what this really looks like until year 2, year 3, when he's had that development time and he's worked with the QB coach. But like, we can play him until that happens.
Yeah, I go back to Josh Allen. We were saying a lot of the same things about him. Cam Newton, we were saying the same things about him. Both those, Cam went to a Super Bowl, Josh within a whisper of it. Justin Fields, the Bears had the first pick. They had a chance to take any of these guys they wanted, but they're buying in. And I don't know that there's not a paradigm shift going on in the NFL right now. That's what intrigues me about Richardson more than anything, is this whole read option stuff and RPO. Like, not only if you don't put 8 guys up against a quarterback like this, not only are you a man short because you're not blocking one guy on the edge, so you got an additional blocker for the run game. You're a linebacker short because your linebacker can't move on the backside of this thing.
Yep.
And then you add in the ability to go 80 yards with your quarterback running the football. Jalen Hurts, to me, is one of the most incredible stories I've ever been a part of. When I watched him play at Alabama and when he got benched in the championship game, I thought it was deserved. He couldn't throw the ball enough to win it. Goes to Oklahoma. I thought they improved him a little bit. He came to Philadelphia, got his chance, was okay, got him to the playoffs, got blown out by Brady. And what he did last year, and it wasn't just the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was unbelievable. He was one play away. If he doesn't have that sack, fumble, return for a touchdown, they're going to go up 14 points going into halftime at least. That all the momentum was on that side. And I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I really do. Take out one play, and it's one of the best Super Bowl performances we've ever seen.
Yep.
We've ever seen.
Yeah.
And if Jalen Hurts can do that, Anthony Richardson's a better athlete than he is. Has more pure throwing skills, arm strength than he does. And so, again, I'm chasing greatness in the same way I'm chasing greatness with Carter. I'm chasing greatness here. And I think for the Colts, anyway, I would at least watch the games. I want to see what happens, you know.
So listen, the description you had for Anthony Richardson, my take on this entire time was that everybody's going to describe him the same way you did. Like, I think we're all in agreement with what we saw from Anthony Richardson. Where people are going to disagree is, where do you value that? So talk to a lot of people. You talk to a lot of coaches through the years. As soon as you say you have to redo his throwing motion, you have to teach him how to throw. He can't win from the pocket consistently. Coaches are out on that.
Yep.
And there's only a few coaches who say, okay, I will build my offense around them. Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. Shane Steichen, maybe, in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts. So is that the connection? Is he the one that's going to be willing to say, we'll build the offense around Anthony Richardson's legs first while we develop everything else?
It worked, right?
Of course
he
it did.
saw it work. He saw that they should have won the Super Bowl,
right,
with that style. And so I do think that I think the day is coming where it took us a long time culturally at the quarterback position to some extent to get to where we are today. And it is, I just think there's a better way to play football right now that's being presented. And it's with a mobile quarterback. It's not standing in the pocket anymore because of this RPO game. And I really, he's either, in the first 2 years, he's either going to be where Jalen Hurts is and maybe better, or I'm not going to worry about him anymore because it just didn't happen.
Right. I think recent precedent is really important for things like that. So the fact that we've just seen, not just Josh Allen, the Allen one was slightly different, but Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields function in offenses that if they had to rely just on their passing ability wouldn't have worked, right? So like Justin Fields last year averaged less than 150 yards a game passing, like dead ass last in the league. But the Bears offense from like EPA per play point of view was only just below average because of what he can do on the ground. And that's with no help around him, with a bad offensive line, with no receivers to speak of. And, they weren't exactly rushing to tap into that as a way of playing to begin with. Like, if that's your game plan to start with for Richardson, who is bigger, stronger, potentially offers more from a variety of ways to win on the ground than Justin Fields does. I think you can plot a way that you can play him for those first 2 years, even if you're the pass game's going to be bad. It's not going to be good. We're going to see 50% completion rate. We're going to see a lot of bad mistakes, but he's going to be dominant on the ground. That's going to be the basis of our run game. And then in 18 months into this, we're going to have an idea of where he's going and if this is actually going to work long term.
All right, we're going to save some of our takes for draft night, for round one. So we're 4 picks in. Anthony Richardson goes to the Indianapolis Colts, puts the Seattle Seahawks on the board. Chris, where are you going for the Seahawks?
Yeah, I think it's time for Will Anderson. You know what you're going to get with him, right? I mean, he's a first-class player. He's a hustler. He plays the run well. They say he's the hardest worker they ever had it out. He's everything you want, which to me, all right, let me tell you my one concern with this. is he's fully developed. He is who he is. He also played around a lot of great players at Alabama. They like to do a lot of stunts and tricks, and they'll put him on the move, and they'll be able to do things. And when you've got a bunch of All-Americans rushing against people who are lesser players, typically when Alabama's playing somebody, then you're going to create all those one-on-one matchups and give a player like Will Anderson a chance to win almost every time. That's not always true in the NFL. And he's not that big a guy. You know, one thing I've learned over the years is on tape, speed always wins, you know, and the size and the length doesn't matter because it just looks good, right? When you see a 5'8" wide receiver on the tape, you go, oh, I love this guy, man. He's like lightning out there, you know?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with edge rushers. The problem is when your arms aren't as long as those tackles' arms and you get stymied, it's just a little bit, you know, Andrew Whitworth, when he was 40, he looked like he was in slow motion out there, and he just, bam, hit you with a jab, and all of a sudden those speed guys, you know, he only had to hold him out for 2.5 seconds, so if you hit him one time, he had him. So I think he's definitely worth a top 5 pick, but am I convinced that he's going to be a 12 sack a year guy? No, I'm really not.
Do you, off the top of your head, do you feel better about Will Anderson compared to, say, Aiden Hutchinson last year at this time? They similar?
I would say about the same.
Yeah.
I would say a notch below some of the top end edge players. But
we haven't seen Bosa's or Myles Garrett or Chase Young since Chase Young. We haven't seen that level of prospect for a couple years now.
That's about right.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be good. Do I think he's going to be franchise changing or no? I just don't.